Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. We are about to start. Good morning, everyone. My name is Faiza. I work with the Girls Advisory Council. It's an honor to be with you today, and I'll be facilitating the session. Today is a great day. So let's kindly introduce ourselves in the chat box. So I would like us to go just briefly, to what we will be doing today. Yes, so we will be having an introduction of our chairperson. Then from there, we'll have a session which will be led by Reverend Father Clement. Our second session will be led by Miss Adelaide from CRS. And then our third and last session will be led by Mr. Kulani. And from there, we'll have inputs from our participants, and then also reflecting on the next set of actions. Yeah, so this is basically what we'll be doing for today. And so the next on our agenda is the introduction. So at this point, it's my pleasure to introduce our chairperson for this special forum. Our chairperson is Mr. Frank Buza, Deputy Director for Conflict Management and Resolution, National Peace Council. Please, ladies and gentlemen, kindly help me welcome Mr. Frank Buza. Thank you, sir, and over to you.
Thank you very much. The network had been terrible since morning. I have to even drive away from my hotel to a location I thought I could get internet. So I'm very sorry. This is a very important thing, particularly looking at how we bring on board everybody, the younger people, the middle age, and then the very old people. In fact, a philosopher once said, it's actually started by older people who know themselves, all others, even sustained by younger people who does not know the beginning of the whole conflict. If you look at the present day in terms of conflict, you will realize that, particularly if I look at the chieftaincy aspect, you realize that there are a lot of younger people all over social media, all over the place, saying things that they don't actually know anything about. And then the unfortunate thing is that the older generation are also not able to put their feet down and say that no, our young people, we have a lot of traditional and tested local means of addressing our conflict. How do we use such system to address the conflict? In terms of peace building, we have tried as many as we can count effort to bring on board the young people, the older generations, and then maybe the middle age. And I believe that Father Clement is going to do a lot of work, or going to speak a lot on this. There hadn't been much gap in terms of bringing the young people on board in modern day, because every practitioner has seen that we can't leave the younger generation out and we can't leave the older generation out. However, the social media has given platform to this younger generation who oftentimes will follow and use the toxic way of addressing conflict instead of using the traditional or the laid down democratic means to address conflict. And I think that is one thing that is not good for us. However, this platform today, I believe, is going to give us a new dimension to what is expected of all of us as state institutions, as civil society groups, as even individuals, traditional leaders, to bridge the gap between this generation towards a peaceful means of addressing conflict. And I am happy that we are starting to do. So our much, all that I want to say, let's listen attentively, and at the end of the day, we have a very good conclusion. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for your remarks. It's great having you here today with us. And so we are moving on to our first session. Reverend Father Clement will take us through our first session. He will be speaking on generational context of war and conflict in northern Ghana, with focus on historical drivers of conflict. Sir, please, if you are with us, kindly unmute yourself and let's hear your presence. Let's feel your presence. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. I will put my camera off so that you can see my younger face.
All right. So this one is youth at heart.
So thank you very much for having me. Let me start by saying that, let me coin the word intergenerationality is absolutely necessary for the human survival. And our traditional societies have always maintained. So in a traditional home, the grandfather, grandmother, the parents, the children, the grandchildren are all living together in the same house. And then that is intergenerationality. And it is very, very important because as the older get older, they are repositories of memory of existence, but they no longer have the energy of the youth. So I'm particularly very happy that we are bringing this intergenerational dialogue. It's something I've been craving for. So given the limitation of time, let me dive straight into the historical drivers of conflict. And I'm happy you have chosen this topic because it's important to understand where we are coming from and why we are in this situation in which we find ourselves. So let me go very far back and look at the slave trade. We all hear about the slave trade, but we have no idea how the slave trade is impacting conflicts, especially chieftaincy and interethnic conflicts today. Basically, what the slave trade did was to introduce a master-servant relationship. It also introduced interethnic discourse, because for the first time, human beings are catching human beings and selling them out. Now, they not only sold out the slaves, but they also maintained some in the houses. Now, what then happens in this that many people do not get to understand? Land and chieftaincy disputes. A young slave girl is captured and brought to the house. The older woman in the house notices that this girl is pregnant. She gives birth. Many years down the lane, the son of this slave girl is become a grandfather. And his grandchildren grew up in the community knowing that they belong to this family. Nobody has told them they are from a slave girl. Then the boy there's a vacant chieftaincy seat, and for all intents and purposes, this slave son is qualified. So you come across chieftaincy conflicts where you dig down to the bottom of it, you realize that there is this issue of a slave son whose grandchildren now want to take over. And somebody can also gift a piece of land to his slaves. Now, over the years, 50, 60 years, if they are dead and gone, now their great-grandchildren see this land as their father's property. But then people who have the memory still say, no, this land doesn't belong to you. And so today, you see certain land conflicts where they say, oh, our father gifted it to a slave, and therefore the land belongs to us. So this is one historical aspect that people do not always understand. And in terms of peace building, we try to understand the genesis, the history of how we got to be where we are. The next one is colonialism. The colonial enterprise in northern Ghana had an impact on the conflicts that we are experiencing today. First, the indirect rule. The indirect rule was the idea that let us manage the country using the local leaders. But they didn't understand the dynamics and the social structures and the leadership forms. So for them, the organized structure of leadership, which was chieftaincy, was for them the local, traditional leadership. But they didn't realize that, especially in the north, we have two centers of power. So that indirect rule created a problem. Now, the second problem the indirect rule created was in those communities where they had no chiefs, they created chiefs. So these are people who were created chiefs without a chieftaincy tradition. So that's the indirect rule. Then in order to facilitate the rule, they started what they call a process of amalgamation. So they will take 4, 5, 6, 7 different tribes, put them together and put one tribe over them. So the colonial governor will now give instructions to this chief, and he has the duty to now pass the instructions on. Now, by putting chiefs in the leadership and governance role, it created a problem because they were using the chiefs to collect taxes, to organize forced labor. Therefore, people started becoming resentful of their leadership. So sometimes you see a kind of animosity towards chiefs. People do not understand that. We'll see how this amalgamation process will come back and then haunt us. Then we now move very fast. Now, this is something that I could treat each one of them for a week, but I have to pull it together to independence. By the time we got to independence, the colonial government had prepared chiefs to take over the reins of government. But there was now a new generation, a young elite, well-educated, lawyers, businessmen, doctors, and so on and so forth. And they were like, wait a minute, are we going to sit down and see the governance of this country put in the hands of illiterate chiefs? So already there was a divide there. So you notice a shift in the chieftaincy literature. Anyway, so at independence, we were stuck with a situation where you have a chieftaincy institution that has been prepared to take over. Now they have been pushed aside, and a new generation of young people are coming with a democratic system of governance. So immediately there was a conflict there. To solve the problem, the government decided that we decided to include the chiefs in the constitution. And so one of the biggest problems at independence is what we call the constitutional dualism. What do we mean? In a constitution, the president is the supreme authority. The constitution is the law. And then we have a national identity, and it goes on and on. Now, in a constitutional dualism, you have the chief, you have the paramount chief or the king. Now, the king of Ashanti and the president, for an Ashanti man, who has supreme power? So you now have a situation where you have the government officials and then you have the traditional leaders. It is fine, but when there's contradiction, now who takes precedence and who determines that? So the constitutional dualism created a system where we had double laws, the constitution and the custom. So when the custom goes against the constitution, what happens? So you see a lot of conflicts that are coming up from this constitutional dualism. We also had a situation where Kwame Nkrumah wanted independence rapidly. Then J.B. Dankwa and his group wanted a slow process. So you see that all those groups that felt they were oppressed in one way, shape, or form went along with CCPA. Then those, the chiefly tribes and people with power and authority went with the UGCCP. Now, when you look at the Boku conflict, it goes back to the CPP UGC divide. So it's another aspect that the politics at independence fed into ethnic divides. So then we now move on to, we say, okay, we are independent, yet some ethnic groups are experiencing domestic colonialism. So this was a source of struggle and a source of conflict in many of our jurisdictions in the north. One of the things the colonial government did was to take over all the northern lands and to vest them in the Queen of England. So at independence, they now gave the lands back to the president. Now, some of you may be too young to know about Ignatius Kutu Achampong and his union government. Achampong was a military president who wanted to institute himself, so he brought the idea of union government, but it met a lot of opposition. And the Northern Bloc was the swing votes that could move the decision. So Achampong decided to engage the northern elite, and they said, okay, then systematize our land system so that the lands in the north can go to their rightful owners. That is how the IR Alasan Committee was formed. And this committee was to investigate the land tenure system in the north and associated freedoms. Now, this was formed in 1978. In 1979, the IR Alasan Commission came up with their findings, returning all the northern lands to those to whom they belonged to before they coming to blah, blah, blah. So literally, they returned the lands to their owners without clearly defining who these owners were. Are they stool lands? Are they skin lands? Are they family lands? You know, and how do you determine who owes what? Why is this important? This commission gave its report, and the conclusions found its way into the 1979 Constitution. 1980, we had the first inter-ethnic conflict related to land and chieftaincy, the Vagla Gonja. 81, Konkomba Nanumba. And between 1980 and 2003, we had about 36 of these conflicts relating to land and chieftaincy. And what was the problem? If you want to trace back and you go back to the colonial policy of amalgamation, this policy worked in the northern region. In the upper east and in the upper west, it did not work. When you read the history, it tells you that the China PO opposed it. Now, what happened was that when they returned the lands to their owners, from Bamboy to Nyole to Pandai to Kwembi, became Gonja land. So all those tribes that were put under one tribe and then their chief was on top, the land went to the paramount chief. But if you go to the upper west, one lands went to Wana, Kaleo lands went to Kaleoda, and on and on and on, all the way to Hamlet. If the process of amalgamation had happened in the upper west, it means if you want to buy a piece of land in Hamlet, the Wana has to sign your papers. So you can now imagine the dynamics. So ethnic groups that were indigenous to the north woke up one morning and found themselves without land. So when you look at the first conflicts between 1980 up to 1990 to 2000, these were conflicts that were related to demand for chieftains. So tribes that never had chiefs suddenly said, okay, if the condition for getting land is to have a chief, then give us our chiefs. The chiefly tribe said, you have never been chiefs before. You know, so when you go to the 1994 conflict, 1995, leading to the peace processes, you know, and today what you have between the Konkomba and the Dagombas, it goes back, way back to this colonial program that came up. So you see clearly a number of conflicts that are going back to this land issue. Now, what happened was that our social systems were disrupted. But E.K. Ferguson had warned the colonial government earlier that in the north there are two centers of power. We have the first settler system and then you have the chieftaincy system. But the colonial government ignored that and prioritized chieftaincy. Now, be that as it may, when we are talking about an intergenerational dialogue, you see that over the years, a system has been created due to no fault of ours. Let me just give you a small example. In the 1960s, Kwame Nkrumah distilled na Abdullahi. The Yabogura had warned him not to distill the Yana because he said, you never distill a chief. You leave him to the ancestors. For the first time in Dabong, there was a Yana who was distilled and a new Yana. So when Abdullahi died, Dabong was thrown into confusion. We have never had a situation where there's a sitting Yana and there's a dead Yana. So how are we going to celebrate this funeral? Now, no court and no amount of gunfire can solve this problem if you don't sit down and dialogue and talk. So it is great that we are having this intergenerational dialogue to let us see that most of the conflicts are coming out, number one, at circumstance. We are victims of circumstances. We have found ourselves in a structural cocoon that is creating problems for us. Let me give you another example. In some of the cultures, if your father has never been a paramount chief, you cannot be a paramount chief. So if you are somebody for whom chieftaincy means a lot, you will move heaven and earth to make sure that your father is paramount. Not because you believe in the system, but your father, by becoming paramount chief, opens the way for you one day when the opportunity comes. Now, if you understand this, all you need to do is sit down and say, okay, if this is the situation, we are in a new dispensation. How do we combine this? So these are some of the structures. And of course, now that we're independent, there was politics. Then people are now looking for power and resources. And where do they turn to? They turn to their ethnicities. So our fathers, their grandfathers are already gone. They've left a system behind for us. Now we need regional ministers. We need district chief executives. We need people to occupy positions. Now you wake up and you realize that because of the colonial policy, there were a huge number of ethnic groups that didn't take education or were denied education or didn't take education seriously. So all of a sudden you wake up and you have to set up the civil service. Then in Tamale, because those days, if your father was well-to-do, you didn't go to school.
I can do it. Hold on.
You know, your father came. My mother was sent to school because she was a naughty girl, and she's the only girl in the family who was educated. Okay. So you wake up in Tamale one day, then you suddenly realize that, wait a minute, what is going on? This is Tamale, and every department you go, you find one of those slaves sitting there at the boss. Master, it will create some psychological dissonance, but it is not the fault of the people who are there at the moment. This is the problem. So in the 1980s, in the 1990s, you hear Tamale for the Gomez. You go to the Upper West for technical, so people started now using their ethnic belonging to lobby for constituencies that will give them power and resources. So you now have the younger generation who turn around because they are better educated. They have listened to their grandfathers tell them stories. Then they pick and choose those stories that will give them legitimacy, that will solidify the status quo.
Is this the coffee?
And that generates conflict. I'll give you another example. Now, if you look at Zare, for instance, chieftaincy was in family A. Somebody did something wrong. The colonial government took the chieftaincy and gave it to family B. And for the next 50 years, family B is having the chieftaincy. The great-grandchild of family A is in Legon, goes to the Barn Library, is going through colonial documents, and then he discovers that his grandfather was the original chief. He comes home and he says, I want to be chief. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? So if this historical context is not properly understood, we are trying to find some. First of all, we don't even understand why we are in the conflict in the first place. So the intergenerational component of it is that the older ones, our elders, are feeding us with information, with stories about custom and tradition. And by the way, nobody will point his left hand to his father's house. So they will tell the younger generation stories that will glorify who they are. The younger generation picks up these stories. They are better educated. They now start writing history. And in writing the history, they're going to skew the history in such a way that it favors them and maintains the status quo. So you see that when people are talking and giving narratives, they are quoting things, and for you, the peace builder, you have to be able to sit back and say, okay, this is the story you have told me. There is a theory called constructionism, which is that you create a narrative that will create the opportunity for you to get what you want to get. So in terms of peace building, you need to go behind these narratives to get to the historical context. Now, let me summarize all this in saying that there is a great role in an intergenerational dialogue. There's a saying in our language that what an old man can see sitting on the ground, a young man cannot see even if he climbs a tree. So we need the wisdom of the elders. We need the insights of the elders.
We are about to share. It will be shared as
we need the wisdom of our fathers. We need the insights of our fathers. But we have to take the wisdom of our grandfathers, the wisdom of our fathers, and we who are now here today, remember that we have received this as a heritage, and we have to give it to our children and our children's children as a legacy. The question is
here, right?
In the 21st century, given our current situation, given our historical background, what can we do that will move us to the next stage so that we can live in peace and in prosperity, so that every family can realize their God-given talent? To do this, you cannot use law. To do this, you cannot use violence. You can only use dialogue. So I think I will break here, and maybe if there are questions, then I can elucidate a bit more. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much, sir. That was an insightful presentation. We really appreciate your presence today. In fact, I've really learned a lot. Indeed, we cannot continue, doing things in our own way within this 25th century. What can we do to move to the next stage? And it can only be through intergenerational dialogue. Thank you so much, sir. So at this juncture, if you have any question from the participant, please kindly let us know. Okay, so we are moving to the second session, and this will be led by Miss Adelaide. Hey, Miss Adelaide. Yes, so unfortunately I will not be able to pronounce the second name. Please pardon me for that. And we are privileged to have Miss Adelaide with us, and she'll guide us through the intergenerational approaches to preventing violent extremism with focus on collaboration across age groups, building resilience in school and also religious institutions, and also homegrown strategies for sustainable peace. Miss Adelaide is a project manager.
Every time somebody sees it, the flag.
She's a project manager at Catholic Relief Service on prevention of violent extremism through social accountability project. Ms. Adelaide, you are kindly welcome. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Faiza, I like the way you mentioned my surname. Interesting. Good morning, everyone, and I trust we are all doing well. Before I start, I just want to make sure that we are all still together. Just send me an emoji, describing how you are feeling this morning so far. Any emoji that comes to mind, just click on it. Okay, I'm seeing different emojis. Interested. All right. Thank you so much. And then, as far as I mentioned, my name is Adelaide Really, and I'm a project manager at CRS Ghana. I'm going to be taking you through intergenerational approaches and how it relates to violence extremism. Now, you'd all agree with me that Ghana is not immune to violence extremism, right? And as we speak, there are so many existing vulnerabilities, what we term as the push and pull factors to violence extremism. So, for instance, if we look at Ghana's proximity to our neighboring countries, so countries such as Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, which already have ongoing extremist attacks, right? And even the presence of various extremist groups, such as Jenim, the Islamic State's West African province, that's ISWAP for short, or even Boko Haram, all points to the fact that Ghana is not immune to violence extremism. I recently read the Global Terrorism report, which indicated that between 2007 to 2024, worldwide, we had recorded about 66,000 extremist attacks. And out of this total number, the Sahel region alone attributed for 51% of this total number. Right. When we also look at the protracted conflicts, I know Father has touched extensively on conflicts, so I wouldn't really focus a lot on that. But when we look at the protracted conflicts, even within the northern belt, right, such as the ongoing Boko chieftaincy conflicts, which has spanned for over 7 decades, right, as well as other land and chieftaincy disputes, as we are all witnessing in Bolgatanga, in Bimbila, and currently in Binyuri in the Savannah region. Right. As we speak, there are growing vulnerabilities or emerging trends which we continue to witness through the illegal mining. Again, focusing on the northern belt, when we look at illegal mining in areas such as Talensi in the Upper East region and around the Bole Enclave in the Savannah region, all continue to point to existing vulnerabilities in Ghana to violent extremism. But that being said, there's one focus that I really want to hammer on, and that is the strained relations between civilians and security services in Ghana. All right. So speaking on issues of strained relations between civilians and security services in Ghana, right now a lot of reports, as we've seen in the UNDP Journey to Extremism report, seeks to point to the fact that when we talk about the trust relations between civilians and security actors, it is now one of the biggest vulnerabilities to violent extremism in Ghana. Right. In recent times, just not too long ago, we had reports coming from Hamili where we said where it was reported that an immigration officer was attacked by the community members under the notion that he was conniving with people from Hamili to kidnap somebody. Again, not too long ago, we had news reports of two officials from Ghana Immigration Service in Bintri in the Northeast region, where unfortunately we lost one life and the other is in critical condition. Again, earlier this year, we even witnessed the fact that there were two officials from the Ghana Police Service who were killed, right, somewhere in the Upper East region. All this points to the fact that there's growing tension when it comes to trust relations between civilians and security services in Ghana. And let me even throw this question to all of us on this call. How many of us can confidently say that we trust the security services? Just show by hand. If you don't, you can just send or put in a message. Okay, so I'm seeing people saying no. You can just put your response in the chat box. Why are lots of people saying that they don't trust the security services? What are we missing? Right. Okay, so all these situations are pointing to the existing vulnerabilities in Ghana to violent extremism. Now, that being said, Ghana has taken several proactive measures when it comes to ensuring that we are safeguarded against threats of violent extremism. Right. For instance, currently we have the National Framework on Preventing and Countering Violence, Extremism and Terrorism. This framework was launched in 2019 and is currently being reviewed as we speak. We've also taken several proactive steps, such as being members of various regional and institutional international organizations, such as the African Union, the ECOWAS, and even the Accra Initiative. All these are coordinated mechanisms to ensure that Ghana builds resilience against violence extremism. Right now, that being said, the second portion of this session is taking to look at how can the different generations collaborate in tackling conflicts, preventing radicalization and recruitment into extremist groups. Now, firstly, we need to all understand the various roles, and from the introduction, we all had opportunities to understand that when we talk about this from an intergenerational lens, right, we have the young generation, we have the middle generation, we even have the older generation. We all have to understand the various roles that all these segments or all these groups bring to the table. Right. People often say that when we look at the young people, youth bring some level of innovation, a lot of energy, fresh ideas, quote and unquote. And people often attribute wisdom to the older generation. Now, how do we bridge that gap and ensure that we are benefiting from both sides? And we all understand that when it comes to intergenerational approaches, each person has a role to play. Right. Now, the second thing that we need to consider here is that there's a need for continuous dialogues, and emphasis on the word continuous, that it shouldn't be a one-off situation. But there's a need for us to have continuous dialogues and forums, which are safe spaces for engagement, where we manage to bring together the various generations and leverage on the expertise and skills that each of them brings to the table and learn from one another. Right. That being said, there's also the need for designed mentorship programs, internship programs, and even boot camps to build capacity, to leverage on the expertise and experience from both generations. Currently at CRS Ghana, this is one thing that we are focusing on. We even started this year with a very structured internship program. at Yefo Ghana, I know Yefo is also running a very similar initiative, and that is more around boot camps, to harness the skills of young people, to train them and to properly equip them to build resilience in the prevention of violence and extremism. Another thing that we can continue to look at is on mass awareness campaigns and targeted capacity building. Right, so now leveraging on the Povesta project, which we are implementing at CRS Ghana, this project has conducted several mass awareness campaigns through debates, through dialogues, just to mention a few. And this is really targeted because we continue to focus on the last mile access, engaging the various people at the community levels. Right. Now, I'm going to use the Povesta projects, which I highlighted in the beginning, as a case study for how we can learn certain lessons. Povesta stands for the Prevention of Violence Extremism Through Social Accountability Project, and is a project that seeks to improve trust relations between civilians and security service actors towards the prevention of violence extremism. Now, there are so many approaches that this project has used that I would like to share, and these are key lessons that we can continue to replicate in several initiatives at the national and community levels. Now, the first is that this project has a very focused approach on using both what we call the vertical approach. The vertical approach here means that we are engaging with the top hierarchy of security service actors, the top hierarchy of state institutions, right? So as we speak now, we are currently supporting the national security on the ongoing revision of the national framework on preventing and countering violence, extremism, and terrorism. This is just our efforts towards influencing policy at the national level. Again, we are also using what we call the horizontal level or approach, where we focus mainly on the community members, on the last mile access, right? So we do this by having a lot of okay. So we also have a lot of engagements at the community level. So, for instance, as we speak, we are currently wrapping up a DERBA, which we had organized in 8 communities across the 5 regions of the North, which we are doing currently with the National Peace Council, bringing together various actors at the community level to dialogue, to deliberate, and to share ideas on how we can foster and ensure peaceful coexistence, even beyond the dialogue. Right. Now, that being said, this project measures the two, using both the vertical and the horizontal, because you can't just influence policies or structures at the top without also taking into consideration a lot of things that are happening on the ground. Another key strategy that the project has used over the years has been the use of the new media, or using the media. And I'm sure for most of us, we are using one media platform or the other, either Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. I know now there are even so many new ones coming up that we can't even keep track with, right? So these are just methods that we use. Somewhere last year, during the 2024 elections, we used social media through the hashtag ChoosePeaceGH. I'm not sure how many of you had the opportunity to hear about that framework, about that. Yes, to hear about that campaign that we run. But we use various social media campaigns to foster peaceful coexistence, both at the national level and at the community level. And now, through the use of social media, we managed to target millions of people through this campaign, bridging both the urban and rural divide. Another strategy that we have used and we continue to use is that we foster a lot when it comes to social inclusion. Social inclusion here just means that we are also looking at involving vulnerable groups, right? So we work extensively with women, with youth, with persons with disabilities, with minority ethnic groups, such as the Fulbe group, right? Even just a few weeks ago, the team was on the ground to engage with some Fulbe members, all in the hopes of fostering social inclusion and also promoting peaceful coexistence in those areas. We had this engagement in the Upper West region of Ghana. We've also had several targeted trainings and trainings towards security services, where we've trained them on key concepts such as preventing violence, extremism, and also on their responsibilities to protect, which we call R2P for short, where we are expecting security services to focus on a more human-centric approach in their operational duties as well. Right. So these are just a few strategies that the Povesta project has employed over the years. But another key thing to mention here is the need for us to continue to foster stakeholder coordination. Now, these or fostering intergenerational approaches or fostering the prevention of violence extremism has a lot to do with the whole of society approach. It is not just within the prerogative of the security services, no, but it's about you and I and then the role that we play in all of this. So in everything that we've done in the projects, we've always managed to include all the key stakeholders, right? So we bring all these key stakeholders to the table. We've done this through several mediums, such as our annual learning workshops, as well as our reflection workshops, and even just sharing reports or lessons learned amongst the various stakeholders, such as the security services, the state institutions like the National Peace Council, the National Fusion Center, and even the other last mile access as well. The last part I'll be talking about is mainly on how does trust look. Like, what is the idea of trust to us? Like, at what points do we say that we've managed to build trust? But before I do that, let me just open up and get one person sharing their thoughts on that. Just one person. What is the idea of trust building to you? Okay, Mana, please proceed.
First of all, good morning to you all. Hear the question again. Can you ask the question again?
Okay, so my question is that what does restoring trust look like in communities? Like, what is your vision or your idea of that in terms of restoring trust?
Well, trust is a most important tool in conflict prevention and resolution. And before people can believe or accept whatever suggestions you are bringing or whatever solutions you are bringing in terms of conflict resolution or prevention, you need to gain their trust. We need to build trust within the community and to ensure that they don't get disappointed after giving us attention. So trust building is very important in the community when we are talking of peace, prevention of conflict, and maybe resolution of conflict. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really impressive. Really impressive. Okay, so now I'm going to leverage on some examples using the Povesta project. Okay, a few months ago, we had conducted a series of engagements in the Katsina and Nankana districts in the Upper East region of Ghana. Now, during one of our monitoring visits, we had very impactful success stories. We had a situation where one person managed to share his impacts of the project, saying that after our continuous engagements in terms of dialogues and debates in that area, he managed to fully trust the security services. Now, how did he do this? He did this by giving up illegal weapons that he had. All right, so we had one person coming up and sharing a success story of how after these engagements through the projects, he managed to voluntarily give out the weapons that he was harboring. And these were illegal weapons to the Commission on Small Arms and Light Weapons in the border area. Another instance of this to me is when we had another engagement. So following our continuous engagements, again, still using the Katsina Nankana area, in the Upper East region, we had a situation where there were a group of women who managed to, let me use the word quote and unquote, see something, say something, right? Where they managed to spot some abnormal behavior in the community. They didn't just sit on that information. They managed to liaise with the security services through the assembly member, give out that information. And through the investigations, it was realized that the people that they had detected or the triggers that they had seen at that time were actually was right. And these were people who were planning to conduct some kind of violence attack in that area. And again, let me just conclude on this by touching on an issue of inclusion. A key thematic area that the project has focused on has been on full day inclusion. And I mentioned earlier that just a few weeks ago, I was in the Upper West region of Ghana to have an engagement between the Full Bay members, the host communities, and the security services. Now, through this engagement, it was very should I say, enriching to hear a lot of testimonies from people from the full base, sharing experiences that through these engagements now, the levels of trust has increased such that now they can even continue to sit down and dialogue with the host communities. They can even volunteer information, to the various security services. And to me, this is actually a trump card, and this is something that points to the need for us to build resilience, through inclusion when it comes to the prevention of violence extremism. As I conclude, I want to emphasize the fact that preventing violence extremism is not just a security issue. It is a generational mission. It is something that involves a whole of society approach, not just you and I, but the various generations, from the younger generation to the middle generation and even to the older generation. And it's through that we can continue to build a more resilient Ghana. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Adelaide, for that wonderful presentation. So we are moving to the last session, and that will be our final session. Then from there we have an open forum where we have the discussion. So our final presentation is from Mr. Colin Tobigo, Executive Director of the Youth Awake and a training consultant in peace and security. And so Mr. Colin will be sharing with us storytelling for peace building. Why stories matter, the role of social media in shaping our conflict of peace, and then also ethical responsibilities of writers and journalists in Ghana. Thank you so much for this. I'm just waiting to have another inspiring session. So, Mr. Paul Lani, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you a lot for the introduction. The name is Kolani Tobig. Kolani Tobig. Mr. Kolani Tobig is not available this morning. He has an urgent situation to attend to. So together with the organizing team, we agreed that I will be presenting on his behalf. So Mr. Kolani Tobig is a peace and security consultant and the executive director of Youth Awake NGO, the NGO called Youth Awake. It's an NGO that is working in Togo, but also beyond the borders, and we work mainly on peace and security. We work on community development and on several projects in this country. So it's a great pleasure for me to speak on his behalf. Myself, I'm a member of Youth Awake, and I currently occupy the position of studies and research, trainings and research department in the Republic of Togo. So again, thank you so much. I would like to really thank the organizers of this event. They have done a great job, and I know it's never easy to gather people from different walks of life and have them discuss such important topics. I quite remember back in 2019, we had to organize an intergenerational dialogue in Lome, and it wasn't easy at all. This topic is very important, it's very crucial, and it concerns all of us. And that's why we are being called for an intergenerational dialogue. My presentation will focus mainly on social media. The role of the social media in this conflict situation, and what the media, especially the journalists, must do in order to prevent conflicts. And many a time, people with good intention, people with trust, people who always do good, by mistake can, be actors of conflict, or can work in fueling more conflicts in our community. So this presentation is about how we should be watchful social media nowadays is not only about things for some group of people or some people who are jobless, who are lazy, who don't want to do anything. Social media concerns all of us. We are all there. We are all enjoying it. We are all sharing things there. We are all living a life on social media. Social media has become a universe, has become a community that unites all of us. So when we are sharing things there, when we are reading things there, when we are interacting on social media, we must be extremely careful. We must be extremely careful. Now, to the question, how has social media contributed to either escalating or calming tensions? I can say that the social media constitutes the mirror to our societies. You know, we see ourselves, we see the realities that we experience every day on social media. So when we are there, and when we go to the social media, we don't go to just a virtual and abstract world. No, we go to a world that is already the one we are living. So we bring our frustrations, we bring our internal conflicts, we bring our own and the community conflict, we bring our disappointments. All are being brought there. See how people react when you post something, and the people don't buy in your opinions. They start attacking you. They insult you. They bring all kind of comments. And for you, at a time, you feel like, if you should even disappear from real life, not even from the social media. I quite listened to a colleague last time who shared his experience with me. He said that there was a time he just added a comment to a post, a comment that he thought would really is very useful and valuable. He came back 2 hours later to read the response, to check if people have responded to the comment. He said that night he could not sleep. He could not sleep because if you see how people insulted him, people humiliated him, people treated him as a trash. Hey, my people, this is not. But I feel like it's always in direct correlation with the number of followers. The way we react on social media. If you go to Facebook and TikTok, people don't care who you are. They don't care if you have feelings. They don't care if you are a human. They don't care if what they will say can destroy you or can give you life. All they care about is they don't like what you say. They want to react the way they want, which is very dangerous, which is very bad. Conflicts are happening in real life, and at times, if you people from a certain community, in northern Ghana, I'm quite aware that there are conflicts among communities, and the Reverend has expanded upon that. So he gave the causes and what is happening there. So if you are from a specific community A, and the people of community B are in conflict with your community, and you in the community A, your role, what people expect from you, is to say only negative things about community B. Now you on social media, you want to sensitize your people that, no, listen, people of community B are not all demons, they are not all Satans. And at times, we have to acknowledge that even us in community A, we are responsible for the great part of what is happening there. Your own people from your community will be the first to attack you, to ask for fire to fall on you. They will pray even for God to kill you instantaneously, which is a shame. So, social media contributes a great deal, in fueling conflicts, and it can be used to appease tensions or to calm tensions. So, among the communities of Dagomba, the Mapusi, and the Kusasi, those realities are there. And in Tamale, for example, young influencers have launched hashtag dialogue, not violence, and to encourage the social media or the respondent people who are on social media to work on fighting hate speech. At Youth Awake, we believe that hate speech is very, very dangerous. It's a weapon. The way our governments are fighting against individuals carrying weapons, armed weapons, or fire weapons, the same way we all have to fight against hate speech. Hate speech is like a sword. But for a sword, for somebody to find a way to thrust a sword into your heart or into your body and kill you, they will have to do a lot, because it's not easy. But see how easy it is for somebody to use a hate speech and cut you into pieces, butcher you all from head to toe, to the point that you end up hating yourself. And that is very, very dangerous. So yes, we can use social media, the same social media that people are using to cause harm. We can use it to heal. We can use it to help people, feel better, to help people solve conflicts and live in a better world for all. We have the same initiative in Togo, in a campaign called #Togo pour la paix. That's when it's French, Togo for peace. And it has helped a lot. Why is storytelling such a powerful tool for healing and rebuilding trust? I quite remember that when we were young, our grandfather, our parents, and usually our grandparents used to tell us stories. Stories not only about themselves, but about the communities, how we came into being, and how we are where we are, what are the conflicts we had with neighboring countries. And sometimes, people, are biased. Or people take position in the way they tell the stories. But we also I quite remember that there are people, when they tell the story, they will tell you, they will try to be sincere and tell you, listen, in this conflict we had with this community, our people are to blame. We want such people who are honest enough, not only because honest, and not just think of, hey, we want to make our ancestors look like angels. We want our forefathers to look like the best people, and for that we will paint a bad image of our neighbors, of people we fought. No, we have to stop that. Yes, we love our ancestors. Yes, we love our forefathers. Yes, we love our parents. But of course, they are not saints. They make mistakes. And we want them to tell us the stories as they occurred. Because if you are not careful on the way you tell the stories to people, you will end up creating new tensions. Because in our strategy, or in the principle called do no harm, we endeavor to encourage people that they should be careful in any effort they employ to solve conflict. Why? Because if you are not careful in the way you devise your strategies and the way you solve your conflict, you will be creating new conditions for new conflicts in the future. The same way, conflicts that ended 100 years ago, 50 years ago, can be rekindled, can be resuscitated if we don't know how to tell the stories to our people, to tell the stories to our younger people. Journalists, media, social media activists must be careful in the way they report situations, or they tell stories about the past, or how they present other people. I'm a Togolese. We have various communities in Togo. It's a small country, a corridor-like country, but we have more than 40 community, different communities. I don't want to talk about tribal groups because those are colonial terms. But anyway, those we have different communities. Some of them, I don't appreciate them. I'm no fan of them.
And then after that one, they will start a
I'm
group
going to
like
tell that
a
to my
microphone.
children. I'm not going to share that on social media. I'm not going to tell people how I feel about other communities, especially if it's negative. No, and we have to be careful about that. Now, social media, can play a big role in countering misinformation and hate speech during conflict. And we all can work for that. We can work on that. And here is the opportunity for me to call on the attention of those who are saints. I'm sorry to say it. Those who are saints. Saints, I mean here, people who feel they don't want to have any problem at all in life. They don't want anyone to attack them on social media. So they go on social media to read, to learn, and they don't act.
You are rather projecting your face.
My people, if you do that, you are not helping society. Because there are many things bad going on there. And we need good people to correct them. We need angels to correct them. We need saints to bring order into the room. So please, don't call yourself, don't say me, I don't want to have any problem with social media. I don't want to have any problem with anyone. I want to be in my corner. I want to just follow and not react. If you follow and you don't react, you are part of the problem. You are part of the problem. But you have to be part of the solution. No society can develop with just one group of one part of them fighting and the rest staying in their corner or staying on the fence. No, involve yourself, bring positive comment, post positive elements, so that you can bring about the change you want to see in society. No angel will come down from heaven to do that. No prayer can do it. You need to act. Act now. Post a positive element on social media. Sensitize people on social media, and bring good information on social media. Educate people, educate your community, educate everyone on good practices. This is very important. I'm especially talking to the elderly people. We are in the intergenerational dialogue. So the elderly are here, people, or at least people who are over 40s, they are, or over 50s, over 50 years. So they are here. Please, many of you, I know you try to avoid problem. You think social media is for the younger one and you stay in your corner. Social media is not for the younger one. It's about life. It's just like your courtyard. Your courtyard, if you don't secure it, people can do anything there and you will not be able to enter your room. So social media, we know it can create conflict, and it has been creating conflict. People are using it to exacerbate, to fuel existing conflict. So we have to use it, and we need to. It's our responsibility, our God-given responsibility to be present on social media, use it to create a positive atmosphere to solve problems and conflicts. And as journalists and writers, people who report, people who are on the media, whether television, radio, all this, we are calling on you to practice some values, some principles. Number one, be true with the information you post. And check several times, check again and again. Nothing is pushing you to post the information. Of course, it's breaking news, but please take your time.
I really like it.
Check, double check, and maybe even triple check. I don't know if I can say whatever, but check again and again before you post. Verify your pieces of information. One piece of information, one small paragraph in the newspaper or on the radio can cause death to hundreds. Even if it's one person that has died, it's too much. One death is already too much. So check your sources of information. Be neutral in any piece of information you share. You don't own it, so it's not yours. You are sharing it. Be neutral. Don't bring in your own feelings, your own your personal opinion, or don't be subjective in what you post. Be objective. Let it for people to appreciate. Don't try to influence people's opinion. And also respect human suffering. You see people suffering, instead of expressing that, you say, no, these people they're responsible for their own misfortune, whatever. Maybe you see a sex worker who has been aggressed, for example, who has been maltreated. Instead of sympathizing, you say, oh, look at them. These people, they have no respect for life and for their own life. No, sympathize with everyone, please, everyone. And protect the most vulnerable. And most importantly, do no harm to people. Because if you do, it can turn back against you. And as Martin Luther King Jr., the American pastor, the evangelical pastor, said it, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So we have to do all our best to fight injustice at all costs. At all costs, because if you are working to cause injustice in at 100 kilometers or 1,000 kilometers away from you, be sure that it can return. It can affect you in one way or the other. COVID-19 came and we thought it's only China. It came all the way to our place. Not only it came, but it affected our lives. Even if we didn't die as they died, but we were all affected seriously. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So finally, we are calling on all actors, all journalists, writers, poets, community reported to contribute to peace in their narratives by respecting fundamental rules, by being neutral, by respecting human life, by loving all. And once again, I would like to say a big thank you to the organizers of this intergenerational dialogue, because it's very, very important that we have such dialogue more often, and that we can unite society, we can heal wounds, we can restore lives, and we can help people, we can help community to be better than what our fathers left for us, not to make it worse. So together, let's work, let's be positive in our attitude, whether in social life or on the social media. Thank you so much. God bless you, and God bless Africa.
Thank you so much, sir, for that insightful presentation. We really appreciate your kind effort in doing this. So we've come to the end of our sessions, and then we haven't our questions and answering session. We've heard from all our speakers, Reverend Father Clement, Ms. Adelaide, and then also Mr. Kolane, a rep, stepping in for Mr. Kolane. So at this juncture, we would like to have a question and answering session from the participants. So if you have any question, any contribution to the discussion, you can kindly, raise your hand. Any question, any contribution? All right, Mr. Suleiman Yusuf, please. You can kindly unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you so much to all our presenters. I really appreciate them for the wonderful job done. And I would like to ask some few questions.
Like I woke up this morning,
maybe most of our presenters who have the answers can help me out. The first question is, and I would like Mr. Clement to talk about that one, the first question. Mr. Clement and everyone here, will you suggest to government to collaborate with the chieftaincy, maybe let's say National House of Chiefs, in order to form constitutions for the kingdoms in Ghana? I mean, we see that most of the conflict we are having now is generational. It came from a very long time ago, and you all have spoken about wrong information given to us by most of the elders, and this is causing a lot of problems in our society. And most of them, the custom and tradition is verbal. Like we don't have most of the kingdoms document their traditions and customs, so that in generations unborn, when they come, they can refer to those books and be able to follow the procedures and guidelines documented. I think this is causing a lot of problem in the society and bringing a lot of conflicts in most of the areas in Ghana. So I'm saying that if maybe NGOs and civil societies can collaborate with government, or maybe request that government collaborate with these chiefs or kingdoms in Ghana to form constitutions that governs every rule or law in those kingdoms, so that these conflicts that comes when new chiefs or other things that are supposed to be done in the kingdoms are to be, it won't bring problems. And the second question, what is the role you think women should play in our various societies in terms of preventing conflicts from happening? That is the second question for my sister. And to the last presenter, I want to ask, he talked about social media and all the cyber problems that we have that possibly generate conflict in our societies or escalate conflicts in our areas. Recently, government of Ghana launches security cyber awareness, and it is something that is very good. I don't know how they are going to operate, but I'm very sure cyber security is already in Ghana before this one. But the work of it, the impact of it is not much felt by me. I think there are so many ghost accounts and there are so many people on the internet escalating conflict, making comments and posting stuff that are generating more tensions in areas in Ghana. And I would like you to suggest possible pressure or maybe roles of civil societies and organizations, or maybe NGOs in terms of pressuring government to put more focus on the cyber security, so that they can hunt down people who are hiding behind ghost names and people who are making comments and posting stuff on the internet that generates conflicts in our societies. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Suleiman and Yusuf. Thank you for that insightful question. I think your question cut across all the speakers. So I think the first, question goes to Reverend Clement, and then Mr. Adelaide, and then to our last speaker. So over to our speakers.
I sent you for that job, because I knew that job, they needed somebody who was smarter than just photography and video. And I said, why do you need to go? He said, because at that time.
Is it possible to take a few more questions so that we can answer them together?
All right, Reverend Father. Thank you. So I have a question in the chat box, and
I left there with a new vision and a new.
Okay, so this one says, very interesting conversations. I have learned a lot from our speakers. Please share with us opportunities for young peace builders like me. All right. Another question is, please, what role do women play in violent extremism and conflict, and what role played by women in preventing violent extremism and conflict resolution? Yes, so I think these are the only questions in the chat box, but if any participant will, okay, Said, please, you can kindly unmute yourself, and then the floor is yours.
I know the guy. That guy is serious. No, I'm not kidding. Like the other day, his name came up in that meeting we had at my friend's house.
Good morning, everyone. I have a question and then a suggestion as well. The question is: are we ready to put away pride and tell the stories of history as they are, or how they are supposed to be told? Especially the stories that tend to be cosmetic or that tend to glorify our forefathers, even if they are not true. Also, you realize that the lack of documentation has caused a lot of these problems. I also believe that we are being affected by falsehood from the elders who are not truthful to us, because the oral history has caused more harm. There were things that happened, though they didn't favor us, and then we are being told by the elderly the opposite of it. So I believe right now it is time for us to move from the oral culture or the oral history to proper documentation and also the acceptance of such.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Said, for your question. I'm sure it's well understood. So the next is Mr. Stakara. Please kindly unmute and then the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam. Thank you so much to your panelists for such a great work done. Mine has to do with the rate at which we report issues to the police and those stuff in some of our localities. I was to suggest that if civil society organizations can assist in letting us go back to the traditional approach in resolving conflict instead of usual the normal way going to the court, the police station, and those stuff. I think if we go back to that approach, it will assist, because without saying usually our traditional authorities will have to look at that and settle it at that level, in that there will not be a cost involved in settling those cases. But when you go to the court, you have to get a lawyer and those stuff. At the end of the day, the enmity that is created between the families involved, or maybe the traditional areas involved, will be too much. So this is the lesson that I also want to add to those approaching resolving conflict. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for that contribution. Madam Hadija Abdesamed is with us, and your hands are being raised. Please, you have the floor.
Okay, so good morning. And first of all, I really want to commend the organizers of the event for the cross-border panel. I was so happy to be here having someone from Togo as one of the speakers. And for me, that was a very great initiative, because we do know that we are very connected in terms of the issues we are facing. So, moving beyond even intergenerational, exploring, having conversations with our brothers and sisters across the world, very commendable. I followed right from the beginning of the conversations that have been shared, and right from Father, who really gave me a very good platform in the space that I am in today, to my sister's speech. That's Adelaide, and then our final deliverance foundation. One thing that has been really in my mind is where do we get the right stories? It really is important, because when people are telling stories from an ethnic perspective, or trying to highlight something that is connected to them, it's very difficult to get the tracing, and so that's really what I'm trying to see how we can explore deeper. Where do we get those right stories, so that we're able to build on them to drive the future in terms of the way we think as young people. So this is my question. Thanks again to all the speakers, conveners of the program.
Thank you so much, Madam. So I think we can go back to our speakers to have, so that they can delve into some of the questions that are being asked, then before we move to the next set of questions. Thank you so much.
And brought the boy with less qualification, and you could feel the tension in the air, to the point where people resign.
Well, I guess I will start with the question of the constitutions. A number of the traditional councils have constitutions that are at different stages. The challenge we're facing today is to get the various stakeholders to agree on what should go into the constitution. I don't think that it is the business of government to go into these traditional constitutions, because the constitution clearly debars government from interfering. But each of these chiefdoms do have a lot of educated people who can come together again to use dialogue to be able to see what do we want to put in place to guide us. And this exercise must be guided first and foremost by inclusivity, that as much as possible we include everybody, honesty and integrity. Because if we don't do that, then whatever we put down that is false will come back to haunt us later. I will take the fifth one that looks at how do we really get to the truth of the stories. You know, history is in different forms. History as in what happened. And even when you have three people watching an event, each of them describes the event differently. History is also our story. We want to write our story. The problem is that when we are creating these narratives, we want to exclude rather than include. So one way to arrive at a solid history or narrative is to be inclusive, to be honest, and to have a sense of the future, that we're doing this not just only for ourselves, but we're doing this as a legacy for the next generation to come. Then we put down that which we see honestly as the fact. Thank you.
Right, I'll just be touching on first of all, the question on the role of women in preventing conflict. Right, and then I would like to begin by saying that when it comes to early warning, women are a very good source of early warning. You're right, it's to be able to detect tensions even from the family level to the community level. This is something that we can leverage on as their role. I remember in 2023, I think after the aftermath of the Doba-Kandega conflict, under the Sahel Peace Initiative, we went there to shoot a documentary to capture the lived experiences as it pertained to the conflicts in that area. And I remember in our conversations with the female leaders there, one woman shared her experience of how, she mobilized the women in the community. That's in Doba, mobilized the women in the community. They marched to the chief's palace to go and advocate for peace. This is just trying to emphasize the role women play when it comes to peace building, and then the level of influence they have in peace building as well. Now, women also play a very strong role when it comes to mediation and dialogue. I know currently in Ghana, we have the Women Mediators Network. I think it's an initiative under FOSDA, where women have been trained as mediators in their respective institutions and communities as well. Hence, women play a very pivotal role when it comes to mediation and dialogue in the context of preventing conflict. Then I also like to say that, the natural role of women as caregivers is something that can be used to educate people, to educate their respective families and communities on the triggers of conflicts, on the push and pull factors as it relates to conflicts, amongst others. So women, through the role of caregivers, create a lot of education in their respective families and communities in terms of conflict prevention. Right. And then during my submission, I also touched on the fact that currently we are reviewing the national framework on preventing and countering violence, extremism, and terrorism. There's been a lot of calls by various female women institutions and organizations pushing for more inclusion under that framework. So even at the national or policy level, there's a lot that is being done in terms of women's role in preventing conflict. Again, I saw a question in the chat box. I stand to be corrected, but it was talking about the role of women in preventing violence, extremism. Okay, so within that context, now the dynamics of violence extremism is shifting. The years before, women were mostly seen as the victims, right? I remember in 2014, we all woke up to the famous Chibok kidnapping that was done by Boko Haram in Nigeria, in the northern parts of Nigeria. So over the years, we've seen a lot of acts being perpetrated against women. But however, as we speak, that narrative is changing. Just last year, there was a female suicide bombing attack in Nigeria, where there were, I think, about 3 female suicide bombers who had targeted a hospital a wedding and a funeral, killing about 18 people in the process, right? So this was something that before we wouldn't have even heard about. But now that dynamic is changing. The role women are playing is no longer just as victims, right? But they're also playing the roles of perpetrators, as combatants, and even as recruiters. A lot of the information that is even given to these extremist groups very often come from the females that are working with them in their camps. So now the role of women is no longer, one-sided, but it is both as victims and as perpetrators as well, as I've given some examples to that point. And lastly, I would like to touch on the question on the role of youth when it comes to sustainable peace building efforts. There was a question on the chat box on that. I remember somewhere in 2020, we took up an initiative under a project with the US Embassy. And in that project, we managed to leverage, it was just mainly for youth, where we leveraged using the creative arts to foster peaceful coexistence, right? So we managed to understand that youth bring about fresh ideas. They bring in a lot of innovation and digital literacy, amongst others, to the table. Now, through that project, we managed to use the various creative arts, from dance to music, any form of creative arts you can think about, to train youth, use that as a medium to foster peaceful coexistence in their respective communities. Now, that being said, youth play a lot of roles when it comes to peace building efforts, right? And this can be done leveraging on their skills in terms of their innovations that they keep bringing to the table, even among their various communities. Under the COVESA projects at CRS Ghana, a key thing that we are implementing now is that we are training a lot of youth, not just to be parts of mediation committees, but also to serve as community peace ambassadors, amongst others. So when it comes to the role of youth, that approach is more multifaceted than before, right? And we are leveraging a lot on these changing dynamics and how we can bring them to the table, and on conversations of fostering peace. Thank you, and over.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Ahmed, I can hear you.
Yes. Thank you very much. So my name is Ahmed Fatama Yakubu from Empowerment Center for Peace Building. So first of all, I'd like to thank our speakers for the insights and the knowledge that they have shared with us. And my point is, I think one of our speakers, Ms. Adlai, mentioned how they are involving the last mile actors, if I get that term right. And I wanted to add that as part of our strategy for promoting peace and ensuring peaceful coexistence, we should try to, as much as we can, go to the youth, the younger ones. I mean, we start from, let's say, primary, JHS, SHS, and try to sensitize them, train them on peace building, on the need for peaceful coexistence, educate them and help erase some of the mindsets or things that they have learned probably from homes or from social gatherings or from peers that are not good for their own growth and that are not also going to promote the kind of peace that we want in society. I admire the fact that she mentioned how they are involving the youth in training them to become peace ambassadors, and that is in line with what I am advocating for. If we try to get to them, to educate them, to make them understand that first of all, their allegiance is to the state and not to a particular social group. So if they understand these things and they are going to do something, they always have to compare to come up with a balanced approach where the state interest always supersedes every other interest, whether it is a tribal interest, a family interest, or a social group interest. If we do this, I think that it will go a long way to creating the kind of citizens that we want for the future of our country and for the betterment of the world as a whole. And also in respect of that is the issue of empowerment. I have the belief that one of the primary reasons for conflicts and the lack of peace in our societies is the fact that people are jobless or people have nothing to do in hand. And we all understand that an idle hand is, a tool for the devil. So as people in this space, I am saying that we should try to increase, or should I say, expand the work we are doing in the area of empowering people in terms of skills, in terms of supporting youth who have this entrepreneurial spirit, to sponsor them with all the necessary tools and money that they need to create that environment where people are engaged, even employing more youth, more people who would be engaged and not be used as tools for mass distraction and all of that. Yeah, so that is my last point, empowering in terms of skills and supporting their businesses.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed. We have just 5 minutes remaining. I think Jennifer Hans has been up for quite long now, and I don't know if you can unmute and kindly give us your submission or your question.
Thank you, President.
Okay.
I want to thank the organizers of this program. It has been an insightful program. So my question is to Reverend Father Clement. We have a lot of conflicts in the north, and I believe that most of them are sponsored. So I want to know if his organization has come to realize this thing. Some of them are not at where the problems are. They are sitting in Accra or even outside the country, but sponsoring the people with guns and money. So I don't know if his organization has identified those people to bring them up for dialogue so that we all solve the problems. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. This to Reverend Clement.
Oh yeah, in the conflict studies, we talk about conflict entrepreneurs. There are people whose business is conflict. Once there is conflict, they benefit. So they will create conflict where there is no conflict. They will sponsor conflict, and very often we talk about the people who should be in the room who are not in the room. And the sad part of it is that when the violence breaks out, it's the innocent ones who suffer. The people who actually finance and fuel the conflict don't even live in the area. So yes, we are aware of them. Sometimes you can identify them, other times you cannot identify them. And that is why you always have to go beyond the conflict. If you look at the Boko conflict and many of the other conflicts, the Beniyiri conflict recently, people say, oh, this is a chieftaincy conflict. This is a land conflict. This is an ethnic conflict. Really? We're living in a time of transnational organized crime. Are we looking at that? And these conflict criminals are very, very smart. They get information way ahead of us. So there may be a land conflict in an area, then you discover that they have a lot of mineral resources there. So somebody is funding. It's always good to engage them if you can get them, but the problem is they're very difficult to identify. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd like to have the closing remarks from our chairperson. Sir, please, over to you.
Thank you very much. I just see that we have seconds, not 1 minute. However, I'm to say that this dialogue should continue, because from what I've heard from Father, the succinct narration of historical fact about what might have been the issues leading to conflict. This indicates that the past plus the present is the future. He also emphasized on peace building to promote inclusive and all-encompassing peace building. We have also identified political interference and Western industrialization in the past, leading to some of this conflict we are experiencing today. Independence struggle has contributed to some of these issues. Adelaide focused on building trust as part of the Professor project, and I think it's something that we should all embrace. Trust among citizens, communities, and even the leadership and government of the people. We also have learned of how to blend the wisdom of the older people with the knowledge that the younger people have today. The CPA focus on toxic and negative use of social media. However, he also has the hope that the young people who use the social media to prevent conflict and also prevent violent extremism. So in summary, personally, as a peace, or I would say a practitioner, this dialogue should continue beyond today, and we believe that if it continues, we will use this platform to minimize conflict from our society and also enable us to build a sustainable peace for the country. Thank you very much. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Adley. Thank you, the CCPA, and thank you, Mawe, and everybody who had been a participant here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. It was an honor having you chair this special forum. So at this juncture, I would like to call back Mr. Divine to give us the next step.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Faiza. And to all our speakers, Father, Kolani, Adlet, and Mr. Frank, this is a great job. You've spoken, you've said everything. I don't have much to add. I just want to give us next steps and to answer the call from Adlet that this should continue. Mr. Frank said this should continue. I'm happy to say that, of course, we are continuing this. It's a quarterly forum, so the next one would come off in January 2026. We would have another one in March 2026. Then we would wrap it up with an in-person conference in June 2026. So this is the continuous process that we've instituted. Aside that, we'll be sending monthly newsletters. So most of the insights that they've shared here, we would package them to good insights that we'll share through our newsletter. For all the contact persons that have registered for this particular event, Adlet also talked about mentorship and all that. We'll see how we could tap into those opportunities and have some of the participants of this initiative benefit from it, and also the knowledge of the Reverend Father, the generational wealth knowledge that he has espoused. So this is what we will be doing, and you should look out for our post-evaluation survey and the newsletter that we'll be sending in our upcoming event. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Divine. So on behalf of the organizers, I extend my heartfelt appreciations to our chairperson, our speakers, our partners, and every participant for your valuable time spent here. Together, we have shown that peace is not just a work of one generation, it is the work for all generations. Thank you so much for joining us here. See you soon in the next session.